Welcome back in another video on the Slee and Wheels. Before the video start, channel subscribe and like the video. Okay, ready for start the video.
Ford Trimotor 1926 Atherton Goose that changed aviation forever. Introduction, a new vision for the skies. The 1920s were an age of innovation and daring. Airplanes were still relatively new, and for most people, flying was a dangerous stunt, not a practical form of travel. Planes were fragile, built from wood and fabric, and often unreliable. But in 1926, Henry Ford, the man who had already transformed the automobile industry, set his sights on the skies. His creation, the Ford Trimotor, would become one of the most iconic aircraft of its time. It didn't just carry passengers, it carried the dream of commercial aviation into reality. Ford's entry into aviation wasn't just a whim. He believed in mass transportation and making advanced technology accessible to the public. Just as the Model T brought cars to ordinary families, Ford wanted to create a plane that would bring flying to the masses. In 1925, Ford purchased the Stout Metal Airplane Company, founded by William Bushnell Stout, an aviation pioneer who experimented with all-metal aircraft. From this collaboration came the Trimotor, first taking flight in June 1926. Its design was revolutionary for its time. The Ford Trimotor quickly earned its nickname Atherton Goose. Its most noticeable feature was its corrugated aluminium skin, which gave it strength and durability. While some criticized its odd, ridged appearance, the design made the plane much more rugged than the wooden aircraft of the era. Its most defining feature was the three-engine configuration. Most planes of the 1920s had only one or two engines, and engine failure was a common and often fatal problem. By giving the plane three engines, Ford engineers made flying far safer. If one engine failed, the other two could still keep the Trimotor in the air. This was a powerful selling point for both airlines and passengers. The Trimotor typically carried 8 to 12 passengers, though later versions could seat more. Its range was around 500 miles, with a top speed of about 135 miles per hour, 217 kilometers per hour, impressive for its day. For passengers in 1926, flying in a Trimotor was unlike anything they had ever experienced. The cabin was simple but comfortable, with padded seats, windows, and enough space to move around. There was even a flight attendant on some services, something that would become standard in later years. Flights were noisier. The roar of three radial engines filled the cabin, but passengers marveled at the speed. What once took days by train could be done in hours by air. For many, their first flight in a Ford Trimotor was life-changing. The Trimotor quickly became the workhorse of early airlines. Transcontinental Air Transport, TAT, co-founded by Charles Lindbergh, used the Trimotor to create one of the first coast-to-coast travel experiences in the United States. Passengers would fly part of the journey in a Trimotor, then continue by train, completing a trip across America in just 48 hours, a breakthrough at the time. The Trimotor was also used by Pan American Airways, helping establish routes to South America and the Caribbean. Its reliability and ruggedness made it perfect for pioneering flights into remote and undeveloped regions. The Trimotor wasn't just a passenger plane, it became a symbol of exploration. In 1929, Admiral Richard Byrd used a Ford Trimotor, named the Floyd Bennett, for his historic flight over the South Pole. This cemented the Trimotor's reputation as a reliable aircraft capable of great feats. It was also used in rescue missions, freight hauling, and even military service. The U.S. Army and Navy operated Trimotors for transport and training, further proving its versatility. Between 1926 and 1933, Ford built around 199 Trimotors. While production numbers were modest compared to Ford's automobiles, the Trimotor's impact was enormous. It helped convince the public that airplanes could be safe, practical, and reliable. The Trimotor laid the foundation for the modern airline industry. It showed that carrying multiple passengers over long distances was not only possible but profitable. Its design influenced later aircraft, including the Douglas DC-2 and DC-3, which would dominate aviation in the 1930s and 1940s. Remarkably, nearly a century later, several Ford Trimotors still exist, and a few remain airworthy. These aircraft are treasured pieces of aviation history, flown at air shows to remind modern audiences of the courage and vision of early aviation pioneers. Seeing a Trimotor take to the skies today is like stepping back in time to aviation's golden age. The Ford Trimotor was not the fastest, the largest, or the most advanced aircraft of its era. But it was one of the most important. It bridged the gap between experimental flying machines and the reliable airliners that would soon follow. Henry Ford's Tin Goose proved that aviation could be safe, accessible, and even profitable. It brought ordinary people into the skies, inspired exploration, and shaped the future of air travel. The Ford Trimotor of 1926 wasn't just a plane, it was a promise. A promise that flying was not just for daredevils and explorers, but for everyone.